Okay, continuing with the Holy Grail of Wisdom quotes by me, Pete Rogers. Alphabetical order. We're doing John Henry Newman, Cardinal John Henry Newman, Saint John Henry Newman. This is a painting of him by John Everette Millais. John Everette Millais was one of the Pre-Raphaelite brotherhood of great painters from the 1850s in England. And Newman was initially Protestant, but he converted to being a Catholic, and he wrote a bunch of long papers called tracts on Catholic doctrine, reasons why he felt the Catholic religion was better than Protestant religion, in particular Anglican, let's say. And they would call him the Tractarians, for example. He was a brilliant guy. His heart was in the right place. He lived from 1801 to 1890. He was over at Oxford, and this was called the Oxford Movement. And the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, they were magnificent artists. Besides John Everette Millais, it led to the whole Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood disciples like Edmund Layton and other great painters. William Holman Hunt, for example, I really like. Okay, let's see, what else here? His friend, fellow convert Henry Manning became head of the Catholic Church in England. One thing I didn't like is Newman didn't get along that well with Pugin. And I don't know Pugin's personality. Augustus Welby Pugin, A.W. Pugin, who was the great Catholic architect of the Catholic revival in England. So the Catholic revival was simultaneous with the Victorian Renaissance in England. It was a time of great wealth and great interest in literature and the arts. It really was a magnificent time for a lot of stuff. Everybody talks about the Italian Renaissance in the 1400s and the 1500s, but the reality is this was a Renaissance in Europe, the 1800s. It's called the Belle Epoque, the beautiful age. And if you read, like, for example, Ayn Rand, the Romantic Manifesto, she'll tell you the three most magnificent times, the three most magnificent golden ages ever in the history of mankind are the ancient Greeks, the Italian Renaissance, and the 1800s in Europe. And that's true. When you start studying the literature, it's like, take a look at the greatest novels. They all came out of that time. Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. Quo Vadis, Henry Sienkiewicz. Brothers Karamazov, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Victor Hugo, Les Miserables. Okay? The Hunchback of Notre Dame. All that stuff came out of the 1800s. Okay? And all those magnificent painters, most of them that you think of as being magnificent, they came out of the 1800s if you study a lot of art. Okay, anyways, one of his biggest, most famous quotes was, "To be deep in history is to cease to be Protestant." I'd agree with that. I spent a ton of time studying Christian history, and I'll tell you, it's just Catholic's a natural thing to be. Now, don't get me wrong. The current Pope is a scumbag. He's part of the guys trying to control the whole world, evil scumbags. But the Catholic Church, its tradition goes back. It's like the greatest institution in mankind's history ever. Okay, and if you really know the history, and I read a ton of things about it, all the criticisms about it, I've read all the apologetics, and I've read all the refutations of those criticisms. No, it's not perfect, but it's as good as mankind gets. Most of its criticisms of it are things that are untrue. Okay, Paul Johnson, he said about Newman, he saw history as an asset to Catholicism in that its study reminded the believer of the incredible richness of its past, which Rome alone seemed to represent. Okay, he started his own Catholic church in England called Maryvale, and he went on to found the University College Dublin. I'll give you some lines from some of his poetries and his quotes. Here's one that was called "Lead Kindly Light." Lead kindly light amid the encircling doom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene. One step is enough for me. How much can you relate to that? I can totally relate to that. I mean, right now, Western civilization is being destroyed. Everywhere. In England, especially. Okay? But also in Australia, in Italy, in Switzerland. Not Switzerland so much. Switzerland's a unique case. But in Sweden, in the Netherlands, okay, in Germany, and in most other places, Australia, New Zealand. Okay, it's very sad. All right? But what are you going to do? I'll just keep on trying to, teach people about how great Western civilization is, because that's the truth. It's magnificent. It's far superior to all other civilizations. There's nothing even close. And, hope for the best. What are you going to do? Let's see. So I think that's a beautiful poem. You just keep going. You just keep doing the right thing, even though where's it all going to head to? I don't know, but I'm going to try. Okay? So it's all I can do is teach with my little YouTube channel, write my books that almost no one reads, but they're the truth, okay? And for what it's worth, somebody else will come along, like I said, like the Irish monks, and hopefully we'll keep civilization alive. Okay, a Henry Newman quote. It's almost a definition of a gentleman to say he is one who never inflicts pain. And Oscar Wilde would say he never does it intentionally. Okay, he tries to be polite. Okay, Newman. A man would do nothing if he waited until he could do it so well that no one would find fault. Yep. Okay, and then here I like this one. God has created me to do him some definite service. I shall do good. I shall do his work. I shall be a preacher of truth. And I think that's a good motto to have. Look, each one of us individually can't do much. But if we all do the best we can to do good, what is right for mankind, for the people around us, for Christianity, for Western civilization, the world will be a better place. Okay? And if enough people do that, the world will be a much better place. What are you going to do? Okay, to obtain the gift of holiness is the work of life. Living movements do not come from committees. Yeah, they come from real people. All right, now here's a good one of a good quote of Newman. He says, "To be deep in history is to cease to be Protestant. Turn away from Catholicism, and to whom will you go? It is your only chance of peace and assurance in this turbulent, changing world. In the long run, it will be found that either the Catholic religion is verily and indeed the coming in of the unseen world into this, or that there is nothing real in any of our notions as to whence we come and whither we are going. Unlearn Catholicism, and you become Protestant, Unitarian, deist, pantheist, skeptic, in a dreadful but infallible succession." Yeah, I've noticed that almost all the Protestant churches are really weak, and they get taken over by a secular ruler, and then the secular ruler corrupts them for their own ends, and then the church just falls into disarray like the Anglican Church in England. It becomes a joke. And don't get me wrong, the Catholic Church has also been infiltrated and it's being destroyed, okay? And noble masculinity, it's not like welcome anywhere. Noble masculinity is sort of not welcome anywhere in the Western world right now, and it can't fix itself because you can't fix the Western world with atheism. You cannot fix it with a gynocracy. They got to stop pretending men and women are the same. They're not the same. Women are great for children. They're great for babies. They're great for a lot of things, but they simply don't have the oomph to save a society like men do. There's no such thing as a gynocracy in the real world. In all the societies, read all about them. I've read endless history. The men are killed, and the women and children are sold into slavery or just killed themselves as well. That's what happens, okay? The women never fight and save the place. They never do, okay? That just doesn't happen. Anyways, I hope the Western civilization survives. I'm doing what I can to preserve it, at least preserve a record of it. Okay, Cardinal Newman. Reason can ascertain the profound difficulties of our condition, but it cannot remove them. Well, anyways, that's John Henry Newman. Good to know about it. Hope you found that interesting.